Hey guys, here. I think we got cut off at the end of that video, so we're going to do part 2 for our Module 3 assessment, 3rd grade, multiplying and dividing. We are looking at number 6 on our study guide. Mr. Davis has the books shown. So again, I have a picture. I have equal groups, which is essentially what multiplication and division deal with. And I have a story. It says, Adam says that the expression 7 groups of 4, or 7 times 4, represents the books. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and I'm going to think about what that is. Do I have 7 groups? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Does each group have 4 books? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. And I'm going to read on. Robin says the expression 28 divided by 7 represents the books. So I'm going to think about that. Do I have 28 books total? Because again, division starts with the total amount. I can skip count by 4s. I have 4 books, 8 books, then I have 12 books, then I have 16 books, 20 books, 24 books, 28 books. So when I take 28 books and I divide them into 7 piles, it will give me 4 books each. Again, here are the same parts as I had here. Remembering that we have a total, those are the same. We have our groups. I'm just going to write this down. We had 28 books total. We had 7 groups or piles or stacks, you could say it however you want, of books. And then we had 4 in each group or in each pile. Those are the 3 parts. It says, he says that both, then they say, explain why they are both correct. So basically, this labeling is a very good way to start by explaining how they're both correct. They have the same parts. And you could simply label those parts like I did here, okay? Or you could say something like multiplication and division are related. These are in the same family. They're in the same fact family. All of those would kind of go to describe why both expressions are true. I can say it as multiplication or as division. Both the multiplication and the division represents this picture. All right. Number 7 is a multiplication chart. And in a multiplication chart, we go across and down in order to find a product or a total. Here it says Carla wants to find 14 times 3. Well, as I go down, it's clear that I don't have 14. Now, what they're not wanting students to do is add on to the multiplication chart. Instead, they're wanting them to consider this large amount, 14, as 2 smaller pieces. So Miss Smith has broken it into a piece that is 10 and a piece that is 4. 10 plus 4 gives me that 14. So I can then multiply 4 groups of 3, 4 times 3, and that equals 12. Then I can multiply the other part by 3, 10 groups of 3, and that gives me 30. Those are the products of the 2 parts, but when I break something apart, I have to put it back together. So I have 12 and I have 30, and I have to put them back together, which gives me 42. So 14 times 3 is 42. All right, our last story problem is actually 2 steps, meaning that students are probably going to have to use 2 different operations or 2 different equations in order to solve this problem. It says, Liz and Ray collect shells. Liz arranges her shells into 8 rows of 4. And one of the things that we have talked a lot about in 3rd grade this year is how in multiplication, rows often is a word we see representing groups. So I could read this as 8 groups of 4. I have 8 things and there are 4 in each of those groups. All right, that is the first part of this story problem. It then goes on to say she has 22 fewer shells. When I see the word fewer, I know someone has less, which involves subtraction. When I see groups of, I think multiplication. So the first thing I have to do is figure out what 8 rows of 4 would be. I can literally draw 8 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then put my 4 things. Each row gets an equal amount. The equal amount is 4 in this story problem, or in this multiplication equation. Right, so 8 groups of 4, and then I need to tell what that product is or what that total is. I can skip count 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32. And if your child doesn't yet know how to skip count by those 4s, they can count all if they need to, but they need to definitely double check if they're not sure about 8 times 4. Now then, Ray doesn't have 32 shells though. I need to go back and see what the second part of the story problem says. It says Liz and Ray collect shells. Liz arranges, so this is Liz's shells, into 8 rows of 4. Then it says she has 22 fewer shells than Ray has. Okay, now Miss Smith thought of subtraction when I think of fewer, but if I'm subtracting, I would have to do an unknown amount that I'm subtracting from. Basically, they're saying 32 shells is 22 less shells than Ray has. The opposite of that would be Ray has 22 more. I want to know how many shells Ray has. So I'm not taking away from Liz's total. Instead, I have to put the 22 with hers in order to figure out Ray's total. So let's just see if this makes sense. If I have 32 and I add 22 more shells to that, I'm going to line up my 1s and I'm going to line up my 10s. 2 plus 2 is 4 and 3 plus 2 is 5. I have 5 10s, 54. Okay, I'm going to double check myself to see if this makes sense. I think Ray has 54 shells, but I'm going to go back and read. She has 22 fewer shells than Ray. If Ray has 54 shells, and I take away 22 of those, will it give me Liz's 32? Let's look and see. So there's a couple of ways I could do that. I could check by doing a standard algorithm. I could line it up and subtract. 4 minus 2 is 2. 5 minus 2 is 3. Yes, I can see using standard algorithm that that would give me the correct answer, meaning Ray's shells were 54. You can also use the strategy of starting at 32 and hopping forward 20. That gives me 52. And then if I hop forward 2 more, 20 and 2. So I'm adding 32 and 22. And that would get me to that total. The same is true if I subtracted. 54 and I took away 2 would give me 52. And then if I subtracted 20 more from that, it would give me 32. So those are just a couple of strategies for adding and subtracting. With these two-step story problems, the key is really reading and trying to visualize what it is that they're asking and who they are asking for information about. So there were 2 different people in here. I'm not trying to find out how many shells Liz has. Instead, I'm trying to find out how many shells Ray has. So just reading carefully, that would be the main hint there. All right, I hope that was helpful for today. If you have any questions, feel free, as always, to reach out to me. You have my email.